Hi guys, Spyro Shock here, welcoming you to episode 2, titled One for the Angels, written by Rod Serling, and featuring Ed Wynn as the lead actor. So we start out with an introduction to our lead character, Lou Bookman, as he is a pitchman, as explained by Rod Serling. And we see Lou Bookman giving a pitch on a hot July afternoon in front of what looks like a courthouse. And if you notice, he's being observed, who turns out to be Death himself observing him. So, as Lou Bookman closes up, he meets with the kids of the neighborhood, and he's a very friendly man, very fond of the kids. He gives them some toys, invites them to a ice cream social hour. Now, I want to state, now in today's day and age, it is very unfortunate that a man like this would be looked down upon and most likely thought of as a possible pedophile. But obviously, this man is, a very kind and, innocent man who just, he loves helping the children. So we go to his house, where he finally formally meets Death. Death is personified, of course, as a well-dressed, kind of stern, mysterious-looking man, which is actually perfect. As always, this Twilight Zone episode, including many others, pretty much all of them, perfect acting, perfect directing, and the reason I bring up actors, Edwin and the man who plays Death, Murray Hamilton, is just a perfect fit for the character of Death. So anyway, so Death goes on to explain to Lou that it is his time to go and that it's his time to die. Lou just doesn't get it, as Death tries to explain it in simpler and simpler terms. So eventually Death gets fed up and he just physically shows him taking the life of a plant. And obviously, Lou finally understands who the man is, and that it is his time to die. Now, of course, like most, he gets worried, and he states clearly that he just doesn't want to go. He's healthy, and that he just really does not want to die. And I love this scene because Death, he states how unappreciated he is and how unthoughtful the humans are, in that they never, keep in mind the ways that Death allows them to go. If they go in such a peaceful manner as Lou was going to go. So I find this scene a great display of Death's side of his point of view on everything. So Lou argues with Death and asks, "Is there anything I could do? Don't I have a say in my time of death?" And he says, "Yes, if you had unfinished business." Pretty much, he states 3 different types. If he has a family that would just be so devastated. If he had unfinished business, work of a major nature. And the third thing is something major that a human, the person wanted to do in life but never got to do. So Lou thinks for a little bit, and he comes up with a bunch of really, obviously absurd, inappropriate answers. And obviously Death says no, in no way does this relate. So Lou comes across an idea that he never had a phenomenally successful pitch, which he explained to Death the importance of, that it would be one time that he would have actually been successful. So Death thinks about it, originally says no, and Lou, very upset, just kind of sits in his chair And Death, feeling bad, again showing that Death is not just a cold, heartless being, says, okay, I'll allow you to do this pitch. So as Death is leaving, he asks Lou how long will it be until this happens. And Lou simply states, soon, maybe in a year, a few years. And Death realizes, Lou's taking advantage of the situation, and Lou just slams the door in his face and exclaims to Death that he's just not going to pitch. He really thinks he got pulled the wool over Death. And Death, unhappily, but he seemed amused with the fact that Lou tried to do this. He keeps telling Lou, you shouldn't have did this, and he pops up all around. It's very lighthearted humor. I like it a lot. Very enjoyable. But eventually, he exclaims to Lou, Death exclaims to Lou that because Lou is not going to be taken, Death has to take someone else who was not meant to go. And right when that is said, a car crash is heard, and it turns out that a man hit one of the little girls of the neighborhood that he was quite fond of and knew very well. So Lou, he goes to see how the little girl is doing, and he comforts her. And then the little girl, still conscious, exclaims that she sees Death. And Lou, he's surprised and alarmed because obviously that means if she can see him, that means she is about to die. So immediately he goes to Death and he says, no, take me. And Death just walks away. So then commercial ends, and we see a doctor. It's about 11 p.m., and a doctor's going up to the little girl's house to check on her, and she's in sort of a coma. So the doctor states there will be a crisis, and it will either go one way or another by midnight. So Lou, knowing that Death is going to come for him, he states to himself, I just won't let him come in the door. So Lou sits there on the stoop, and at 11:45, Death strolls on by, greets Lou, and they discuss, the light discussion about that. Lou asks, Death to reconsider, and Death said there's no way he can do it. It's already set. So Death sits there with Lou, and Lou asks Death what would happen if he missed his appointment. And obviously Death says it would be unheard of. It has never happened, and I can't let it happen. So Lou comes up with an idea and doesn't share it. He keeps it to himself. But he begins to set up a pitch, and Death wonders, what the heck, it's late, why is he doing this? And Lou just exclaimed lightly that many times he has a late night sale. Obviously, Lou having some scheme involving this. So eventually, he starts pitching to Death himself, and Death, initially says, obviously I'm not a buyer, but Lou starts to pitch to Death lightly at first, and then Death gets really into it. I love this scene so much. Again, it shows the human and heart of Death, that he is just as persuaded as humans, and he just gets so into it. He even his hair gets disheveled, and he starts to sweat. Eventually, he starts buying everything. It's a really good, lighthearted, and somewhat comedic scene. But eventually, Lou, after Death has bought almost everything, that he states to Death that I have one last item I'd like to sell to you. And he says in a very, well-worded manner that he wants to offer himself. And Death doesn't understand. But eventually, the clock strikes midnight, and the little girl awakes because Death was not there to take her, and Death obviously gets angry. Because he missed his appointment, but Lou smiles and just says, "Thank God." And Death, seeing the slyness of what Lou has done, just fixes himself up, and he tells him, "You're a very persuasive man and a perfect pitch." And slowly but surely, Lou, shows Death that this was the pitch. The whole point of him pitching at night was to let that big pitch be between him and Death to save the little girl. Just a really, really well-written ending to the movie. So Death smiles at the slyness of Lou's plan, and he says, he asks Lou if he's ready to go, and Lou is satisfied that it is his time. He picks up his briefcase. Well, at first does not pick up his briefcase. He walks down with Death, and he says, to Death, "Hold on," and he takes his briefcase. And he exclaims, "You never know what people will want up there," stating a light look at, a person's passion follows them, to the grave. But, and then he asks, did he make it into heaven? And Death says, of course. So, and then the episode ends with them walking down the street in the darkness to the afterlife. And Rod, of course, always gave his spiel, and his last word, his last words in this episode were actually stated about that because Lou's love and care for the children, though he was not a successful man per se, because he was loved and cherished, he was indeed a important and successful man. It's actually a beautiful way of looking at it. And it's funny because that is actually, from what I've seen, not the main point of the episode. The main moral was also, about life and death, and that everyone has their time, and there's a reason for that time. So, to conclude, the episode is very good. Perfect actors. The writing is perfect. Nothing too mind-blowing. It's a very lighthearted episode, even though it does involve with drama and death. But I give it about a 6 out of 10. And as all these episodes, they're definitely worth a watch. But this one is definitely still a very good episode and very enjoyable. So that concludes our episode for today. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be Mr. Denton on Doomsday, as well as more goodies and more videos that I think you'll like. So, thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you here again. All right. Good night.